Mangala Kali Odura Kali Kapalini Durga Shama Shive Datri Swaha Swada Namostute Narayani Namostute Sarvadishadike Sharanya Trayambike Gauri Narayani Namostute. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Aravavahai Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishovahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Part B is where you find yourself now, or if you're looking at one of those star maps that say you are here, and they have a little arrow in the vast universe, then you are on Mother's spiritual map right here at the base of this pillar with the Purusharthas, called the 4 fruits of life. Purusharthas. It's really a sort of a Divine Mother, therefore tantric kind of teaching, but it really has elements of yoga and Vedanta in it. As we've said, very hard to separate the streams of yoga, Vedanta, and Tantra, and I'd say even Buddhism, because they're so India, and they're so similar in their conclusions and their precepts, and they're in the Dharma. Probably you could make a general distinction to say Vedanta really is sort of the mind of India, and Tantra is more like the heart with all its worship, and yoga is more like the energy, and Samkhya is more like the body. So that's the well-rounded fourfold body, mind, energy, heart complex of any good human being. When you have Vedanta, Tantra, Yoga, and Samkhya, the 4 of those Astika Darshanas that we just mentioned on this pillar, then you have a well-rounded path of life, of spiritual life particularly, that is a fine combination of cosmology is in terms of practice, in terms of principles, and then a well-rounded practice in terms of yoga. You have an actual hands-on practice, and then you have the devotional aspect in the heart with Tantra, worship of Krishna, worship of Shiva, worship of Mother, worship of Ganesha, who is here on our wall. And then you have Vedanta, the brain or the mind, which is really going more toward the non-dual and making these great declarations, of some of which you'll see here when I look at the Shatsampati and called Sadhana Chatushtaya. After we finish this chart on the Purusharthas, we'll go straight there and you'll see one of the great tenets of Vedanta and how it really is just a statement of fact, statement of truth. It doesn't mess around a lot with anything other than pretty much non-duality. Even what semblance of practice called sadhana you can find in the Vedanta is pretty much razor's edged. It doesn't mess around a lot with systems or lengths of time or evolution or transformation. It just declares the truth, and the truth sets you free. So it's very non-dual in its essence that way. That's why Vivekananda brought it first and foremost, although he also brought the Raja Yoga and teachings on books on Sanskrit and teachings on Samkhya. The Vedanta was first and foremost for him. So with that as a sort of opening to the second half here, and for about an hour we have left or less, we have looked at these first two Purusharthas, fruits of life. Always start with Dharma, and we looked at its 3 bullet points and had a quote from the Mahanarayana Upanishad. And then you can look to Kama. Many people are probably thinking Kama Sutra, because when you think of an Indian scripture, worldly people always say Kama Sutra, but spiritual people also say Gita. So that word Kama is a Sanskrit word that has worked its way into English language, desire, but you can see how it's used here in the more traditional teachings. It's legitimate desire you want to avail yourself of, and you have to be very wary of the other kind, illegitimate desire, desire that's enacted outside of the Dharma. And that's why that last quote that we ended up the first half with is very important. She makes that distinction, and I sang that song about her to sort of bring the point home for you in your tantric heart, because it probably registered in your Vedic mind, but your tantric heart had to also have its helping of assistance. So when she says one kind of desire stimulates enjoyment, another kind or second kind stimulates or quickens your dispassion, and she's saying make sure you make the discrimination between them, and always choose those that quicken your dispassion, that fulfill your desires. My teacher used to give a lecture once a year. He'd call it "Satiation Never Comes." And he'd start out, he was a monk for, some 70 years of his life, of his 90-year-old life. So, and then he would, somewhere in that beginning of that talk, he'd always refer to satiation never comes. And he'd also say in there, the West is following the Bhoga Marga. You cannot make any spiritual progress following the Bhoga Marga. You must follow the Jnana Marga. So he used to say, and after that he'd say, you need God vision, not television, and things like that. So he'd start to bring the point home. And so Bhoga Marga means path of enjoyment. And we're bound to feel maybe guilty when that's pointed out to us, because we do have so many enjoyments, actually exquisite enjoyments in the West, and plenty of money and time to enjoy them if we don't get sidetracked by Rajas or Vikshepa Shakti, the restless power, the distorting power. But we also have this free time. Einstein said, if you have free time, then you can improve yourself spiritually, religiously. You need that. So it says, hurry up and get done with your schooling so you can get a real education. That was one of the things Einstein said about this higher turn towards God. So that kind of attitude then, even among the Westerners, people like Romain Roland and Aldous Huxley and some of our great, our own ascetics that went to the woods and cabins, Walt Whitman and so forth, that kind of person, were into the Upanishads. They were reading them, and kind of the forerunners to a lot of our Neo-Vedanta that's going on now, and they were very much ennobled by taking in these great teachings of the Vedas and Upanishads early on, sort of seeding our culture early on with that, so the rest of us could come along and pick up the thread of that. So the beautiful thing about knowing the distinction between the two types of desires, rather than just going back to this sort of sin and damnation, sin is desire is a bad thing and you have to root it out by the roots, is that you find out there's a kind of desire that's under the auspice of Prakasha Shakti. It can lead you on. Your desires can actually become a kind of revelation to you. Because the desire for devotion to God, for instance, is a beautiful desire. people used to ask Ramakrishna, isn't all desires bad, so isn't devotion to God also a desire to have devotion to God bad? And he said, oh, no, it's like some greens will give you acid, indigestion and so forth, but the hincha greens will not do that. They're very good for your digestion. So there's a kind of green in India that's very good for your digestion, evidently. So he says desires are like that. Some of them just will give you bad karma, and others are actually very good for you. So that's a teaching around desire that's non-conventional. It's like I mentioned this morning in satsang, one monk came up to Ramakrishna and said, how do I get rid of lust? And Sri Ramakrishna said, don't, increase it. And the young monk was kind of surprised to hear his master say that. And what do you mean by that, sir? Was the question. And he said, lust after God. Increase your lust and turn it towards God. And if you have anger, then be angry that others have realized God and you haven't. Same with jealousy. If you have jealousy, be jealous of others who are enlightened and you haven't got it yet. So give all of your passions, lust, anger, greed, envy, shame, pride of caste, pride of lineage, greed, shame. They're called the 6 passions and the 8 fetters. Give all of them a positive turn. And now you're talking about higher tantra here, not the lower tantra that the West is involved in, where you're into sexual objects and drinking taking intoxicants. That's basically what the West thinks about as tantra, and so it kind of got a bad name. But you might call it the right-hand tantra path, or the right tantra path to follow, is this taking up of your desires and not looking at them as black marks on your soul that you'll never get rid of, but actually taking them and making a positive turn with them. It's one of the beautiful things about tantric teaching. So again, we're bound to maybe feel a little bit of shame and remorse and so thing around those kinds of things, but here she's saying, for you, my children, do not worry. The desires of your mind, you will fulfill them. Later on, you will attain eternal peace. The more these desires come and go for you, the better, she said. So she wants you to experience them. Not in the way some of the pseudo-teachers of recent times, I'm not going to mention any names, that have come from India, have told you just to engage in all of your sexual activities and don't have any stops on your organ. Bach had a lot of stops in his organ. How many children did he have? So there's a joke about, musically we usually say about that. So anyway, this idea about pulling back from the sexual objects and from the desires of the senses and everything to store up power inside of yourself, and then using that power to place it on the heart and open up the heart chakra. That's all about sublimation. One of the best words in the West we have in English language to explain Tantra is sublimation. It's not repression or any of those words that are kind of warning words for the Western psychologists, but basically sublimation is a very good way of saying how you take this energy up and refine it. Pure food, she said, actually, is another one of her great quotes, you must turn pure food into pure blood into pure thought, and pure thought into pure mind, and pure mind is God. So this is a practice that you do by stages that starts with your food. And being very observant about not just what you eat, but how you eat it. It's even more important to bless it and to remove the imperfections in it. Not just that it's organic or inorganic, that's not what they're talking about so much. If you can get organic food without breaking your pocketbook, great. See, as soon as they find out you want organic food, even though they didn't have to spend the money for pesticides and spraying, they're going to raise the price on it because people want it. It's a specialty item all of a sudden, you see. So that's greed. It's one of those passions in the human mind. But if you can just purify food of the inherent defects in it through mantra, that's what they're talking about. The inherent defects in food are that it didn't get enough sunshine and water, rain, or that somebody grew it for money. That's an inherent defect in food. That whoever cooked it, was having a bad day, so their bad mood got into the vibration of your food. It's all about vibration. So these you remove, you see, by mantras, and then you take the food. So those are more tantric teachings, higher teachings about how to sublimate things. It's a very beautiful path, actually, that should be called back into the Vedic fold, and welcomed again, and given this new interpretation, this better interpretation. So those are great teachings by her. Now that's sort of covers a lot about kama and desire from a more enlightened standpoint, I think. Let's look at artha. Artha is right livelihood. I'm borrowing a Buddhist phrase there because right livelihood is one of the eightfold path of Lord Buddha. It happens very early on, after right perspective. You have right perspective first about everything. That would sort of be dharma, wouldn't it? And then you can go in and have samyak, perfection in other things. All of the eightfold path starts with the Sanskrit word samyak, or Pali word. So now you have right livelihood in keeping with dharmic principles. So you had desire in keeping with dharmic principles. Now right livelihood. I just got a message today from one of my students, actually an Indian man, who said, I work in a workplace where people are lying to each other and lying to the customers. How do I deal with this? So I hear this all the time. People with a conscience, if you want to use an old-fashioned word, but people with more of a dharmic perspective, to use a more contemporary term of phrase, that they're very conscious about wanting their work to be, karma is work. They want their karma to be clean and clear. And so it's very difficult to do that in the collective consciousness, collective mind, whatever collective body you happen to be associating with. So in that way, you see how important it is to people to follow the Dharma, even in terms of wealth. And it's very difficult to purify wealth. Wealth leaves a distortion on everyone who owns it, you see. So you have to be very careful with it. The 3 bullet points for artha then: predicated upon a balanced lifestyle married to the quality of generosity. Beautiful, you see. So you get sattva, you earn your money in sattva, and then you practice generosity with it. You give it away. And of course, you don't give it away unless you're able to live without food and roof over your head like a sannyasin can, and they won't even own money anyway. But you can be a kind of person that can give away too much. Generous to a fault, they say. So you have to be very careful. But you can give according to your capacity. See? And as I was saying this morning at satsang, you call that dhanam in our tradition. Dana means giving, tithing, so the idea of tithing in English. See that you give a certain amount of your income to organizations that are teaching the Dharma. The rest you use to raise a dharmic family. Like that person I mentioned the first half, I want dharmic parents next time, that's my bottom line. Well, then, those kinds of people will be making sure the Dharma can at least exist, and hopefully that it will thrive. You can see Dharma thrive in the West, and by the way, that's the purpose that Dalai Lama is here, and that's the reason why Mao Zedong was there, and that's the reason why there are evil people in the world. That's why even Avarana and Vikshepa Shakti have a purpose. It's not like an insentient devil that's just all bad. See, that there's positivity in negative things, and there's negativity in positive things. And you have to, suffering is, in other words. So you have to get used to this and adapt to that. If you dam up a river outside your house and so your kids can swim, someone downstream is dying of thirst, you see. So you committed an evil karma, and that karma will come back to you, even though it was probably, especially since it was unconscious way you did it, you see. You weren't taking things into consideration. So all the seers and sages are very careful when they move here in the level of relativity, in physical bodies and so forth, with individual and collective mind going on. They're very careful what they do here, because anything can go awry. So even for a very careful, masterful person. The Roshi has to learn to walk across rice paper, you see, without leaving a wrinkle. Or a bird flies through the sky, but it doesn't leave a trace. You see. So that's the way the very careful enlightened soul have to move amongst the realm of action. and their repercussions. So, on the level of artha, then this becomes very important. You have to offset your money making with generosity. I think it's a beautiful thing. We wish it would happen more often. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, I saw a person who had millions of rupees that he was spending on his daughter's wedding. In India, the weddings, you hire everything from elephants to musical bands and parades and everything. Huge, huge affairs you might have seen. So this man is spending 1 million rupees or 1 billion rupees on his daughter's wedding. But his neighbor just lost his house and he's out on the street. I mean, this happens literally in India. When someone's out in the street in the West, unless you see a street person somewhere, usually they have somewhere to go. Something will happen. Some relative will take them in, they'll live in some back room, and then they'll call themselves homeless in a way. But in India, you actually do become homeless. People are lying around the streets of Calcutta all the time, every night. They find a place with a piece of cardboard and they lie down, and that's where they sleep that night. It's almost a part of the culture. But my point being here that you have a person who's spending billions of rupees on his daughter's wedding, and their next door neighbor was out in the street, won't even give him a handful of rice, Sri Ramakrishna said. Won't even go out there and give him a handful of rice. Human nature. So this is the idea that's brought forward about generosity. You should be a part of your dharmic practice to engage in it whenever you, especially if it comes into your periphery. I mean, you don't have to go looking for these things, but if it suggests itself to you or it comes into your atmosphere, then it's really Divine Mother herself is calling it forward to you to do something. So that's your opportunity. Second bullet point here, demands that one moves among the sense objects without attachment. So a yogi can actually own many things. He won't say they're mine, but he can move amongst the sense objects without being attached to them. So you find yogi householder couples. So maybe they have children, maybe they don't, but they're living in a fine house and they have a few pieces of furniture. If they're sattvic, they usually live in a very bare place. You see, like some of Ramakrishna's disciples, a couple of them are rich, and you go to their house and they don't have any furniture. And they don't sweep and clean the cobwebs, you see. And they're just very, very sattvic and just living. They have plenty of money, but they just don't have any desire for pleasure. And so they're living in a kind of sattvic state, you see. Have a roof over their head, but they're not into pleasurable furnishings. Things, you see. They just sleep on a cot on the floor or something, on a mat. And that's fine for them. And then they'll go on practicing. Sri Ramakrishna said, those people sit under a mosquito net at night, and everyone thinks they're sleeping, but they're actually doing japa of the Lord. Nobody can see them, but they're actually saying the Lord's name late into the night. See? And so that's a sattvic devotee, he says. He had a few like that. So move amongst the sense objects, but don't become attached to them. It's one of the rules of thumb, again, around artha, under the auspice of dharma. Third point, based upon the twin ideals of non-ownership and careful responsibility. So those are kind of the two pillars of artha. Non-ownership, you're going to custodian things, but you won't own a thing. I don't own a house, I don't own land, even if there's a deed in your name. That's just a paper, so you don't own them. So you never fall into the problem of ownership or agency. Those are the two great problems in spiritual life. Ownership and agency. I'm not the agent of my actions, and I'm not the owner of anything. If you can practice that truly, honestly, and sincerely, then the third problem, sense of separation from God, will also dwindle, you see. You'll feel more and more at one-ment, as they say, with divine reality. So those are the three, if you want to put them in, look at the Hindian sweep of Hindian scriptures and put it in a way the Westerner can understand it. That's the way we used to do in early SRV days 20 years ago when we first started. This is our 20th anniversary. We said, how can we put all those great teachings in a way the Westerner can just understand it quickly? Okay, here it is. Non-ownership, non-agency, non-separation. If you can adhere to those three principles and practice them, you'll be fine. the Dharma will be alive and well in you. So the quote here is Lord Buddha's. Who else to talk to us about that than him? Blessed are those who live amidst abundance, and among those who long for possessions, yet whose longing is not for the world, but rather for the supreme happiness of spiritual bliss. Isn't that beautiful? In the Dhammapada, the earliest teachings of Buddha, that occurs. Blessed are those who live amongst abundance, but whose longing is for spiritual bliss instead. Very hands-on way of putting it, that idea of non-ownership. Let's move on to moksha. Of course, that is, we've already taken it as a teaching back on the chart, the top of the pillar. So it's fitting that it should be at the very root of the pillar too, in this pillar, of course. The Purusharthas we're studying right now, all of you, the four fruits of life, here's the fourth. Let's read the quote first this time. Lord Vashishta, one of the ancient rishis of India, says, "Firm conviction of oneself as Brahman is moksha." One of two or three of the best definitions of moksha I've ever heard is that sentence. Firm conviction of oneself as Brahman is moksha. If you have the firm conviction that I and my Father are one, that's freedom. Even recognition of the fact, that's called enlightenment. See, so there are different ways of saying it. This is Vashishta's way. He goes on, moksha arises in the mind that longs for moksha. This man was great, you see. Vashishta, everyone reveres him. And the scripture, Yoga Vashishta, is like a cult classic in the West. You can go on the web and type in Yoga Vashishta, and you'll see all these groups that follow it, who are Westerners. And they're not really regarding any other aspects of the Hindu Dharma necessarily. He says, that's my thing. I like what he says. I'm a Yoga Vashishta follower. Forget Star Trek. You don't have to be a Trekkie. Be a Truthie. I'll be a Truthie and follow Lord Vashishta. He goes on, it is the goal towards which all tend. Initiation and instruction from a guru and a spotless intelligence are the two means to moksha. Find a teacher and refine your intelligence, and you'll have freedom at hand. Those virtuous ones who gain moksha from early childhood and train themselves in Atmagyan and associate with great beings, those are the most virtuous ones. So, I want dharmic parents, right? They who from a very early age train themselves up in Dharma, they get moksha. Isn't it a perfect way to end this explication of the four fruits, famous four fruits of Divine Mother Reality? Let's look at the bullet points and move on. First, it is founded in self-inquiry, which leads to knowledge of the real and the unreal. When we go to this, we'll see that Viveka and Vairagya are very important, knowing the difference between the real and the unreal. So that's actually the first treasure of Vedanta, of the of the Shatsampati, and it's called the Sadhana Chatushtaya, the four treasures and the six jewels. We'll get to that. Don't start taking notes on it yet. Stay focused here. So it's founded in self-inquiry, which leads to knowledge of the real and the unreal. And you know the difference between the essential and the non-essential. What's important and what's not so important. You make that swift and sure act of discrimination. The word is viveka. So important that Swamiji took it for his name, Swami Vivekananda. Second bullet point is revealed upon the extinction of desires leading to quiescence of mind. Why you want to satisfy your desires for wealth and for any other participation in relativity in the Dharma, so that it will lead to moksha. It is a state in which objects, their knower and knowledge are not found. So now he's giving us a definition of actual moksha. The person in moksha will not find objects. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the further you go towards Brahman, the further away you will go from the world. This is not a popular notion. People want to have God and the world both. Not that it's not possible, but they fall into the Bhogamarga, don't they? And then spirituality by the wayside. oh, I'll get to that later, after I finish this book, or after I, go on this vacation, or I'll practice meditation soon. I want to get a teacher. It's on my list. See, so you begin to, seek everything that will be added unto you first, and forget about the Lord and Mother of the Universe. So that's the problem with that kind of psychology. So what you want to do is come to understand another one of these triple teachings. There's the knower, there's knowledge, and then there's the thing to be known. Krishna puts that very nicely in the Gita. He has a whole list of things to be known, which are dharmic, and a whole list of things which are adharmic. Sometimes he calls it the division between the divine and the demoniacal. So it's just basic discrimination between the real and the unreal. Those 3 points are there under moksha, just like the 3 points under artha, kama, and dharma. This has been the Purusharthas, brought to you by the Divine Mother of the Universe and all the rishis. A beautiful teaching from the Vedic fold and Tantric fold both. Now, let's look at this 4 treasures and 6 jewels in the time remaining. Next week, not next Sunday, Sunday after next, because there's a Christmas break next Sunday, we'll start Shakta Advaita Vada 2, and we'll begin with here with the Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the Trinity. I have a new chart on that, which you will like to see, and also a semi-new chart that some of you haven't seen about the Trinity that is very important. So back to Purusharthas, 4 fruits of life, how important those things are to understand. Now, in fact, they're in a song. I was going to have a note here that they're actually listed in a song, these 4. They sing. Jaya Jaya Jagavandini Devi Dukha Harini Tarini Devi Dukha Harini Tarini Mahesha Hridaya Ashini Jaya Jaya Jagavandini Vairavi Bhavani Nagendra Nandini Nagnaga Pasha Gorani Nadini Vairavi Bhavani Nagendra Nandini Nagnaga Pasha Gorani Nadini Gyanendra Jupendra Jogendra Dikoto Jnanendra, Jupendra, Yogendra, Dikoto, Charane Podiya, Diva Shirajani, Jaya Jaya Jagavandini, Jaya Jaya Jagavandini. Devi Dukha Harini Tarini. What a beautiful name for mother. She's got hundreds and thousands of those names, all pregnant with meaning and so wonderful and inspiring. Devi, the goddess, Dukha, suffering, Harini, remover of, Tarini, compassionate. See? Put those together in any definition or order you want, and you'll be pointing to this wonderful Divine Mother of the Universe that millions of beings love. Swami Vivekananda, she is the special object of my devotion. No progress will be made in the world until you realize her. No progress in spiritual life can be made till you realize Shakti power, Divine Mother power. Swami Brahmananda, Mother is 1,000 times more gracious than Father. I can go on pulling seers and saints out of the timeless beginnings of scriptures of India and begin to tell you what they said about Mother. Always hidden though, always hidden behind the scenes. Yogis go into dark mountain caves, Ram Prasad sings, so that her brilliance will be all the more pronounced when her vision comes to them. See? So they'll sense deprive themselves in absolute darkness, so that when they close their eyes or open their eyes, it doesn't matter, her brilliance will be that much more stark against that pitch blackness. So there's so many beautiful things about Mother. We're concentrating pretty much on her territories here, but we give retreats, sometimes once a year, 3 of them so far, on Divine Mother reality, in which we engage in singing these songs with each other. So that song says, basically, Jnanada Varada Sukhada Mokshada, and Gyanendra, Jupendra, Jogendra, Tikoto. So Jnanada, doesn't that sound like Dharma to you? And Varada, doesn't that sound like Kama to you? And Shukada, happiness, doesn't that sound like wealth to you? And moksha sounds like itself, of course. So Gyanendra, Jupendra, and Jogendra, Dikoto, and Jnanada, wisdom, Varada, protection, Shukada, mokshada, that is happiness and liberation. So you're pretty much talking about the 4 fruits of life when you sing that. Now, let us go over to the Sadhana Chatushtaya and Shatsampat, the 6 jewels. So this is the first treasure. Here's the second treasure. This is all the third treasure. So it's 6-fold. Shatsampati. That's the, here, when I put Shatsampati. That's the 6 treasures. And then it ends in Mumukshutvam, which is a desire for this. Mumukshutvam, moksha, they sound much the same, like mukti and moksha. So when you go through all of this, Vedantically speaking, which is very much a mental, intellectual purification, it's a practice that goes on in your head. By reading scriptures, by hearing the truth from the teachers, and by practicing your sadhana, meditation, and so forth, this is a mental practice. Pujas can be offering flowers and incense and so forth, like we did here last night. But you can do the whole puja in your mind first. Better to do it in your mind first and then do it that way. Most people go the other way. They learn it outwardly, outward ritual, and they might get stuck there, you see. But usually you're going to sit down and close your eyes and enact everything, see, before you do it. If you can do that with your day, you'll probably start hitting some of those marks that you're aiming at instead of missing them all the time. You should envision your day, in other words. Yesterday's imagination is today's envisionment. Today's envisionment is tomorrow's realization. That's how my teacher used to put it. You can start with imagination, but don't get caught in cartoons. See? You have to go on to realizing that imagination in a vision. You see, and so this all takes place inside of your own mind, because that's where all the worlds are. Even this world is nothing but inside your mind. Trees, lakes, mountains, they all come from your thoughts. Holy Mother said that objects are just thought concretized. Objects are thought concretized. How's that for a 5-word teaching of power? You see, 4-word actually. So if you just sit and take a 4-word teaching like that, all of this has come out of my mind, you see. So why don't you go back in your mind and find where it came from and start to remove little imperfections in your creation. They're appearing out here, right? In trees and oceans, fears, doubts, problems, everything from getting eaten by a shark to stubbing your toe. So let's go back inside, you see, and see where stubbing the toe started from, where the shark started from, where fear started from, everything that's in my mind. And that's what you do when you practice something like the 4 treasures and 6 jewels. Let's look at it in the remaining half hour, I think we have. There you see, the quote, "The sages have spoken of 4 qualifications for spiritual attainment." This is in Vedanta now. Deep discrimination between the eternal and the non-eternal, renunciation of the fruits of action, acquiring the 6 jewels, and longing for liberation. When these 4 are present, devotion to reality succeeds. When they are absent, it will fail. So Vedanta is talking about an inner practice that you do in your mind, sort of like meditation. That's why Vedanta cuts here. It doesn't cut down here. You see, it cuts at the throat of ignorance. That's why Kali is holding a severed head. And a bloody sword on the other hand. You might look at that and say, yikes, that's a wrathful deity. But the head is smiling. You ever notice that in those icons, in those pictures, those artist renditions? She has a whole necklace of skulls and they're all smiling. What's that about? No head, no headache. That's what that's about. See? So offer her your neck. See, stick it out there. Oh, mother, cut, quick. You see, that's what a system like Vedanta does. It's the swiftest of all yogas. Devotion is the beautiful slow boat to India. See? With all the scenes and all the fun, all the chanting, all the dancing and so forth. But jnana takes you quickly to the truth. In one lifetime as quickly. See, it cuts there. So it cuts there, as you can see, because of things like viveka, cognizing the distinction between the real and the unreal. And there you see the 2 attendants on viveka, adhiropa and apavada. First, you must recognize false superimposition. This teaching goes very good with what? The 3 Maya Shaktis. Avarana, covering, vikshepa, distortion, right? You must recognize false superimposition, where things are covering the truth in your life, in your mind, in your world. See? I mean, goodness, if we talk about dharma and adharma, then we go into the workplace and we don't practice discrimination, but, and find out where the covering power is happening, then our bosses cheat humanity. See? Multinational corporations ruin the environment. See? So at any level you choose, but in the level of karma yoga, there's a covering power going on. It's deceit, and you have to call it out. Or if you don't have the destiny or the chutzpah to call it out, then you must retreat from it and say, I will not participate in that. There's a better job waiting for me. I must stick with the Dharma. So you can see where I'm going with the connection of these kinds of teachings. Yoga, Tantra, Vedanta, so forth, I've said. They're very connected with each other. You have to look for the connections and make them. Just like bringing 2 circuits together so the thing will run. The Dharma will run for you as a machine. So, Adhiropa is recognizing false superimposition. Apavada is refutation of misconception. You will do away with a thing only once you recognize it. And if you don't recognize it, then it's either a matter of pretending it away, or you just don't see it. Pretending it away is vikshepa. You just don't see it is avarana. So both of those Maya Shaktis are alive and well in your soul. And Prakasha Shakti is not coming forward to save you. These are Prakasha Shaktis, especially Apavada. She will reveal to you how to get rid of the false superimposition. And if you're talking about workplace, that's one thing. But if you're talking about morality and immorality, that's another area in you that needs work. And then you're talking about telling the truth, that's another area. If you're talking about nonviolence, that's another area. So you begin to hook up the yogic yamas and yamas with what it means to recognize false superimposition and do away with it. Vedanta just takes you to the core, quick. If you don't go to the core quick, you have more time to make a mistake. That's the idea, right? You know how it goes, right? You have the best of intentions. Even spiritual aspirants have the best of intentions, but they get into this stretched out, long, multi-day, multi-month, many-year kind of sadhana, and there's so many areas in which they will fall out of the teachings that are coming from my lips. See? Do you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? See, as the actor said. See? You must hear them, shruti, you must contemplate them, yukti, and you must realize them, anubhav. Get your full realization from them. See, words are important. So these are 3 words that you can take with you to the Vedic bank, you see. Viveka, with its 2 components of Adhyaropa Apavada. That's pure Vedanta right there. This is happening in your head. This is not a Hatha yoga practice. It's not pranayama, breathing exercise. It's not practice of morality and immorality. This is going to the source of the problem, which is the mind. The mind is the source of all problems. Everything happened in the mind first, and then it came out here and spilled out. Thought is father to the deed. So, Vivekananda, you see, we thought it was so important that we made this distinction. Now, Vairagya comes next. Rejecting the unreal and accepting the real. People do discriminate between the real and the unreal. They might even begin to use versions of the Adhyaropa Apavada divine duo there, you see. But will they actually, once they make the distinction, retreat from or detach from the unreal? That remains to be seen. There are some 10 or 12 levels to Vairagya, according to some teachings. I think Lord Vashishta gives a version of that, where the first 3 are very mild detachment, the next 4 are middling, and the next several are intense. That's, mriga, adimatra, middling, and then higher intense. So 12 levels of discrimination. I can bring you that chart if you want to see it. So a person who, you see, loses a loved one, like a wife or husband, and then is married a year later, that's mild detachment. They lose a loved one, I'm never going to marry again, they say. A year later they're married. So they didn't learn the lesson that everything gets lost here, that all of this is unreal, that all of this is changing, that it's all ephemeral, that suffering is. How many different ways do we have to come back and say, you see? Be careful. Proceed carefully in relativity, like we were saying about all acts. And be prepared as much as you can. Meditate on death. Vivekananda used to say that. Sit down and say, I'm now without a body. I'm now without senses. I'm now without the breath. And do it inside of yourself. Enter a breathless state. You do it in deep sleep every night. Sometimes go breathless for minutes and nothing happens to your brain cells. And all of a sudden, deep sea diver sounds as the lungs kick in again and the soul comes out of deep sleep and enters dreaming again. It has to breathe, you see. So, practice the art of detachment, Vairagya. Viveka Vairagya. They sing about it, beautiful songs, you see, there. I played this for 50,000 people about 2 years ago on January 1st in India, and they all started clapping and singing it with me. They liked Esheche nutan manas dek bijoli ai chole. Esheche nutan manas dek bijoli ai chole. Tar viveka vairagya juli, viveka vairagya juli, dui kante sada jule. Tar viveka vairagya juli, dui kante sada jule. Esheche nutan manas dek bijoli ai chole. A new man has come. If you want to see him, come with me. He has over his shoulder only one possession. It's a shoulder bag. And inside that shoulder bag are two things, Viveka and Vairagya. It's all he owns. What does he say? Nastiko agyane nare sakartate shikale. Nastiko agyane nare sakartate shikale. She Kali, She Krishna, Nama Beda Akbule, She Kali Jai Krishna Nama Veda Akbule. Gnostical. You have to go back, you see? All the orthodox systems. Get rid of ignorance. See? He says, Kali, Krishna, they're all names of the Lord, they're all the same reality. He goes on. Aqua, wawa, water, pani, vare, nama, de, jole, alaga, isa, musa, kali, nama, ved, bole, 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 eşece, nutan, manus, tek, bitori, alçele. This rolls on like that, verse after verse. He says, aqua, water, pani, and vari. 4 people come to the lake at different ghats, different landings. One of them takes water and calls it aqua. Another one the Englishman takes water and calls it water. And someone else takes it and calls it vani. And someone else calls it pani and vari, you see. But they're all the same water. He says, Allah, God, in the same way, Allah, God, Isa, Musa. That is, the English calls it God, Muslim calls it Allah, the Hindu calls it Isha, and the Muslim Musa is Moses. So basically, they're all the same being, coming in these different forms. There's only one reality, and it appears in different forms. What's this song about? It's about Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Yasheche Nutan Manas, a new man has come. If you want to see him, come with me. And you'll find that he has just 2 possessions. So beautiful songs going on like that. What did they sing about his disciple, for instance? He's saying, in the same way, because he took Viveka as his name. They go, Himadre Ashrame Jayancham Nirmita Ujanga Shragvrini Tivrite Nutane Stavoyang Yahapate Shaktata Tanaraha Sashaktim Parusham Viragam Charjati. That's the last verse of the hymn to Vivekananda. To all those who would seek true freedom, we encourage the chanting of this hymn, composed in a sacred Himalayan mountain retreat. Devoted recitation of these verses on Swami Vivekananda imbues one with physical vigor, mental strength, and spiritual power, and increases discrimination and detachment. Increases it. And then they would go on singing. Narendra Shashave, Narendra Yovane, Narendra Kridane, Narendra Shikshane, Narendra Palane, Narendra Yarpane, Vivekanandate, Prabhate Pranjali. So these hymns were written in a very short time since Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda were in the body. It didn't take more than several decades before their devotees started writing hymns like this by the hundreds. I can't even learn them all. So I've been to India 15 times. I come back with a new one every time. You see, they're constantly writing them. Such was the devotion to the avatar of the age, the Kali avatar. So, Viveka Vairagya, Vedantic axiom, you see, and the thing about it is there really is no practice in Advaita Vedanta, right? If you want an Advaita Vedanta sadhana, this would be it. It's the only simile of a practice that Vedanta even mentions. Yoga, you'll find all sorts of practices. Tantra, you can go sit on a dead corpse in a graveyard at midnight, you see. That's a practice. There's so many practices in the other darshanas, but Vedanta doesn't really give you a practice. It just tells you the truth. So this is the closest thing to a practice a Vedantist could find. It all happens in here. I have to make this sharp distinction between the real and the unreal, and then I have to detach from the unreal. Then I'm fine. I can do this in 6 months. I can do this in a day. I should do it every day. And then I call you a Vedantist, my dear. So, those two mainstays. And then the third pillar, this third treasure is sixfold. Sama, Dhamma, Upariti, Titiksha, Samadana, and Shraddha. There you are. Nice little jewels of different sizes there coming out of the treasure chest. I had fun looking these up, and using the images and connecting them. And you see, Sama is inner peace, Dhamma, self-control, Uparati, self-settledness. There's your contentment, which I was mentioning in the first half, in Vedantic style. Titiksha, I mentioned that too, forbearance of all ills. Samadana, concentration, but a kind of concentration which allows you to focus on divine reality only, alone, and won't let anything else intrude. You ever tried that in meditation? It's hard enough just to get rid of thoughts of objects, vrittis, vibrations, like yoga wants you to do, but to try, just to have the ability to sit, close your eyes, and immediately the mind falls into deep, rapt meditation on divine reality. That's samadhana. It's at a very, very high level of Vedantic attainment then. And finally that ends in Shraddha. And my teaching there, which is a kind of signature teaching I've been using as far as the 6 jewels go, is that the Vedantist faith, if any Christian, Muslim, or anyone else comes to you and says, what's your faith? My faith is concentration on reality in which I forbear all ills, and which my mind is completely content, because I have self-control, and that all springs from inner peace, because I detached from the unreal, because in the beginning I got discrimination from all things unreal. I made the distinction between the real and the unreal. So backwards and forwards, you have the faith of a Vedantist. This is what's called rock-solid, unshakable faith. And at the beginning, you're not arguing what the difference between the real and the unreal is. You admit there is what's real and there's what's unreal. I just am confused, see, about how they overlap. See, they seem to overlap. Why do they overlap? Because of this Maya Shakti, called Avarana Shakti, and this Vikshepa Shakti, because truth is being covered and it's being distorted. And I need to get some Prakasha Shakti on my side. A heap and help in the Prakasha Shakti. See? I need that. Now, I don't know how much time we have, but I can't resist singing these 6 jewels in the song. That is one of the, it's like they say that it is really the first song that Swami Vivekananda ever sang to Sri Ramakrishna when they met in that lifetime recently. It goes beautifully. Mono chalo nija iketane. Mono chalo nija iketane. Shamshara videshe veshe Brahma kino akarane. Mono chalo nija iketane. O mind, return to your own abode, your eternal home. You are a foreigner in this foreign land called Earth. Why do you roam about aimlessly with no real purpose? The 5 senses and the 5 elements, all these are different from you. None of them belong to you. Why have you become senseless in your attachment to others and forgotten your own true nature? Later on in the song about the 6 jewels he sings, O mind, set yourself on the path of truth and walk every moment lighting your way with the lamp of Dharma. Secretly and with great effort, keep the riches of your good deeds with you for sustenance and protection. Greed and delusion, the highway robbers on the road of life, rob all travelers of their belongings. Therefore, keep with you the 6 sentries like Sama and Dhamma. So, in scriptures, in their philosophy, in their darshanas, and in songs, these live as a testament to the enlightened lives of souls, of luminaries, who have gone before us, and not in the sense of a river of time, that's spread out in linear fashion, but as a layer cake. They're still here. I am here saying these things. There's only one I. So bring all of this together in you. Be that great I. See? And all of your great souls, all your great teachers, you'll feel them inside of you. And you'll go to them and you'll say, thank you for giving me that wisdom that you have. And they'll say, that's not my wisdom, that's her wisdom. It's just a great testament to us that we remember it from lifetime to lifetime. Give me dharmic parents. See? Now, if you get these, of course they're not unconsiderable as attainments. I mean, even try getting one of them, say inner peace. Holy Mother used to say, you need peace first and foremost, because if you fall into restlessness and laziness, avarana and vikshepa, tamas and rajas, then you can never be content. You'll never get anywhere. Peace of mind is the bottom line then for the aspirant seeking anything. They can get to samadhi through peace of mind. It's a springboard. So if your job has dishonest doings going on, or if your mind is not your friend, or any of these levels of consciousness that you become aware of problems with, you cannot get inner peace. Peace of mind is penultimate to every other thing. So quit your job if it's going to sacrifice your peace of mind. Give up your children and your family if it's going to ruin your peace of mind, because you can't raise anyone right if you don't have peace of mind. A new man has come. He has a shoulder bag with Viveka and Vairagya in it. He's telling you this is the way to get free. Buddha got married too early, had a child too early, named his child Chain Around My Neck. Rahula means chain around my neck. Then he left. Did he leave? When he left, was he guilty because he left his child and wife? No, he got enlightenment and he came back and showed them the Buddha way. So, Sri Ramakrishna says, if your parents stand in the way of your spiritual life, you have a right to renounce them. But if they don't, then I say fie on you if you give them up. That's discrimination, isn't it? Between the real and the unreal. People lost in reality. I recited this morning Ramprasad's beautiful song. It says, don't you know that all beings are lost here? Everyone lives in pallid imitation of everyone else. That's it. 2 lines of his song. Don't you know that everyone's lost here? How often do you find a person who's found their way and who can, without a doubt, state it to you? See? They're all living in pallid imitation of each other. Rounds of work, rounds of raising families, rounds of ancestors and rebirth. Those are what the great souls wanted off of. If you could do it in Dharma, fine. But to do it in samsara is not to do anything at all. Is to go faster, spin your wheels without going anywhere. So this final treasure here is very revealing of itself. Mumukshutvam, and one of my favorite Swami friends, Elder Swami in India, is called Swami Mumukshanandaji. He has the true desire for liberation. Now this is not moksha, mukti yet. It's the desire for it. You can see what you have to go through then in Indian darshan and Vedanta in order to have an actual, sincere, true desire to be free. In other words, it cannot just be a flash in the pan. Boy, I'm really tired of this rounds of birth and death and ignorance. Don't like my family, don't like my ancestors. I don't like my job. I really want freedom. And you go over for Thanksgiving dinner and they treat you real nice. You say, well, I guess I don't really want freedom after all. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a very strong urge for freedom, was it? Sri Ramakrishna used to say, all of a sudden this young man gets a very strong streak of renunciation, probably because of some karma from a past lifetime. And all of a sudden he says, I'm going to Benares. That's the city of Shiva, where I will renounce everything. Goodbye, everyone. Gives away all his belongings, takes a little tiny cloth and a pot and walks away, waves goodbye to the parents. And they'll say, wow, he's going for enlightenment, you see. About a week later, they get a telegram from Benares. Found a great job here. Really doing well. Where was his renunciation, you see? It was insincere. It fell down in the first three meek levels of detachment, didn't it? Not the higher, middling, or intense levels of detachment. So I'm just saying all these things not to criticize or not to bring negativity into it, just to point out that this is a very rare attainment where a person gets a true desire to be free. This means freedom from form. Like I say, you're going to practice death, you're going to cut time out of the picture, you're going to renounce space, ethers, and you're going to sing like Shankara, Namrichor na Shanka, Name Jati Beda, Pita Naiva Me Naiva, Matama Janmaha. I have no death, Mrichor, because I was never born. I have no father and no mother. Na mata, na pita. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Om Chidananda Rupaha. Rupa, I am the very form of Chid, consciousness. Shivoham Shivoham. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. He lived to 32 years of age and changed the face of the world in a short time with the Advaita Vedanta after Buddhism had become to an end of its decline. About 700 AD. Buddha was born 550 BC, so there was about 1,000, 1,200 years there in India where Buddhism was really having its heyday. But then every religion has a decline. That's what that says on that picture on the wall. All dharmas have their decline. Then from age to age I have to come back again, embody myself forth to resurrect them. Well, there are certain pillars in these dharmas that stay the same even when the dharma declines. That is, men fall out of dharma. Dharma doesn't fall out of dharma. This is called sanatana dharma. Sanatana means... How'd you know that?
Just a lucky guess.
This man's name's Sanatana. So, yes, it means eternal. And it refers to your soul, yes, but it also refers to every other damn thing. Everything is eternal. Nature is eternal. It's just that when it disappears, it becomes the formless eternal. Nothing is born and nothing dies. That's what we just sang, right? So that applies to everything. Nature, God, you, your ancestors, they just go into a formless state, come back again. Great-grandfather turns into your baby. So this is constantly going on in cycles. It's a matter of number one, do I want off these cycles? Because a merry-go-round can make you sick after a while. It's fun at first. Then you get a little nauseous, you say, I want off, you see. Or number two, can I master the cycles? Master the cycles, you see. In order to do that, I'm going to have to gain mumukshutvam. I'm going to have to make sure my desire for freedom is unalloyed, uninterrupted. And it has to be based on the attainment of the 6 jewels and the 2 V's, which are the 2 D's. Viveka Vairagya, which means discrimination and detachment. So this is a Vedantic practice, if such a term could be allowed in Vedanta. This is what you do in your mind. If you have this all together, then you have the perfect mental, intellectual practice. You can live in that desire to be free until she, the Divine Mother of the universe, comes along and gives you moksha. After you've done the right thing, she'll give you moksha. She grants moksha. So here we have reached the end of our time. At the next class, which is the Sunday after next, remember next Sunday is a break for Christmas, but then we start into Shakta Advaita Vada, which means all the inner parts of this chart plus the lower parts. Now that we've taken the pillars and what surrounds her, we will take all of these other aspects in what's called Shakta Advaita Vada Part 2, which I think is about 5 classes. So the whole series will be some 8 or 9 classes long when we finally get it on YouTube for all of you to see, to look back on. But in the meantime, you've been here present for the immediate transmission of this, so I applaud you all. I'll give you a t-shirt. I survived Babaji's class in Vedanta, and we will go home with all of this in the hopper, you see. As I said, inundation method, and squeeze out of the mind what isn't applicable to you at this moment, and retain what is, make that the core essence of your life, and you will be living in the Dharma. So here, let's end with a chant. Om Tachnayo, Om Tachnayo Ravrini Mahe, Gatong Yagyaya, Gatong Ye Nupataye, Daivi Swastrastu Naha, Swastir Manusebhyaha, Urdvam Chikatu Bhesajam, Sangno astu dvipade sang chatushpate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we offer all into the Great Self. May we always delight in this offering. May we always revere the Lord and Mother of all sacrifices. May divine blessings be upon us. May peace come into the entire human race. May healing, well-being, and prosperity also then abide among us. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.